So let's now move on to our international guest, our international speaker, Mziyanda Mbuseli. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. We know him as Mzi. He works for the South African Power Pool, based in Zambia. And for us, it's a coup to get input from somebody that operates the market on a daily basis, probably 24/7, literally at all levels. He also told me the other day that some of the Munics have approached him to play in that market space. And so, as you know, we are moving into a market arena, well, I think shortly, but soon. And so we probably could have a pure private market, and then we could still have a regulated market where I think the municipalities would still be playing a role, because understanding is that to play in a pure market, you're going to be financially stable with the proper balance sheets, et cetera, guarantees and so on. And I don't think our Munics are just there yet. We need to get there quite fast. So, Mzi, you just enlighten us, give us experiences. Where are the shortfalls? Where are the gaps that we need to be careful of? Bearing in mind that as part of the electricity crisis, in terms of the president's plan, we will also be looking at tapping into the South African power pool to get electrons. So, Mzi, without much ado, you have 15 minutes. Welcome again to South Africa. And I understand you're coming out of Lusaka, Zambia. Over to you, Mzi.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Wally, for the introduction. And certainly thank you very much for inviting the Southern African Power Pool to share our experiences. Just confirming that you can see my presentation and you can hear me.
Yes, I can see you, and you're coming loud and clear from Zambia.
Thank you very much. Just a minor correction, Wally. We are actually based out of Harare, Zimbabwe. Zambia is our member, of course, as well. But
okay, my apologies. Good.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, then let me delve into the presentation. We've got quite a long agenda in terms of the slide deck. However, I will not be talking to everything on the presentation. The content is on the presentation that can be shared for information. Just a bit of background about the SAP. We cover the 12 SADC mainland countries. We are an energy institution of SADC, the Southern African Development Community, covering a footprint in the region of approximately 350 million people, with an installed regional generation capacity of 69 gigawatts and an operating capacity of 44 gigawatts and a peak demand of 50 gigawatts. And this is a total for all the 12 countries that I'm referring to. This, of course, excludes Tanzania, Angola, and Malawi that are yet to be connected to the interconnected grid. We were formed, as I just mentioned, in 1995 at the SADC Summit through an intergovernmental memorandum of understanding that was signed, and our key objectives really were to coordinate and cooperate in the planning and operations of the interconnected power system, as well as ensuring that our members can share equitably in the benefits of power pooling in the region. And lastly, to ensure that we can operate a regional electricity market that facilitates cross-border trading of electricity as a power exchange. Of course, our vision is to be a fully integrated and competitive energy market and a provider of sustainable energy solutions across the region and beyond, with our associated mission being to provide energy and associated services in the region and beyond. Just some historic perspective in terms of what preceded the SAP from an energy trading point of view. that led to the formation of the power pool and where we are today. Way back in the 1950s, there was trading taking place between the DRC and Zambia via 220 kV AC line into Zambia. This was followed in the 60s by a Zambia-Zimbabwe interconnection at 330 kV at Kariba Dam. And obviously in 1975, we had the HVDC scheme between Mozambique and South Africa. Around the late 90s, beginning of the 2000s, we then had the Central Corridor, the Matimba Pokoje Nsukamini line, which runs from South Africa through Botswana into Zimbabwe. And that's really the line that opened up power exchange or cross-border electricity exchange in the region, which is the line that opened up the southern coal-dominated system into the central, more hydro-dominated system. In terms of our governance document, I've mentioned that we were formed through an intergovernmental MOU signed by our member states. This was followed by an inter-utility MOU that was signed by our SEP members, traditionally the state-owned utilities in the various countries, that brought about the management of the SEP. We then have the agreement between operating members. That is a document that sets out the requirements for the interconnected power systems operations in terms of rights and obligations of our members. And then at the more operational level, we've got the operating guidelines, which is sort of our regional grid code. Then from a markets perspective, we've got market guidelines and the market book of rules that then governs the various markets that I'll speak about shortly. We then have the Coordination Center Constitution that really deals with the issues of the administration and the management of the Coordination Center that is based out of Harare, Zimbabwe. In terms of our structure, we do report to the SADC Directorate of Infrastructure in Botswana. The highest structure within the power pool is the Executive Committee that is made up of the Chief Executive Officers or the Managing Directors of our members, and that's the highest decision-making body in the power pool. Then we have the Management Committee below that, that is comprised of the utility senior management. Typically the transmission directors, as usually our members are interconnected at a transmission level. We then have various subcommittees where our members are represented that are tasked with various activities of the power pool, from planning, operations, environmental, as well as markets, and the Coordination Center Board. We have recently reviewed our membership categories. Traditionally, our members were the state-owned utilities. We were directed by the ministers responsible for energy in SADC to open up the power pool so that there could be other participants, independent power producers, traders, aggregators that could join the pool. We did that and it was approved. So our membership categories as we stand still comprise of the national power utility, which is meant to recognize the members that are entrusted by the respective governments for the ownership of the power pool. We then introduced an operating member category, which is aimed at members whose operations have got a significant impact in terms of the operations of the grid. Here we are looking at members that have got over 300 megawatts of generation capacity. We then have the last category, which is market participant. Here we are looking at members whose main objective is to trade in the SEP markets. Here you do not need to own a generator or a generation facility for as long as you can prove to us that you've got access to power and you've got the right to sell that power through our markets. And for membership here, we're looking for you to have a license to conduct cross-border trading of electricity. You must be authorized to import and export electricity. Also, you need to be connected at a SEP grid. Typically, we operate from 110 kV upwards. And you have to be able to make sure that you can transfer that power if committed within the SEP markets. Other requirements, we do need for you to have an interconnection agreement with the host utility and have a balanced responsibility agreement with the host utility, as well as a letter of support from the host utility to then be able to join and participate in trading electricity within our markets. This is a current view of our membership, number 1 to 12. That's typically the traditional members, the state utilities in the various countries. Then we've got operating members, which is a new category where we've got 2 transmission companies, one in Zambia, Copperbelt Energy Corporation, and we've got a couple of IPPs, Lusamfa Hydro in Zambia, Ndola Energy in Zambia. Then on the market participant category, we've recently accepted 1 member, Green Core Power Services Limited in Zambia. So you would note that a lot of activity in terms of applications for new membership has come from Zambia. We have a lot of applications also that are coming through from South Africa, mainly from independent power producers and traders applying to be our members, and we are processing those applications. This is just to give you a view of the current interconnected system in terms of the voltage levels from 110 kV up to 533 being the DC lines from Mozambique. The dotted line, obviously, in Angola, Tanzania, and Malawi indicate that these countries are not yet interconnected, but we do have projects at various stages and work undergo to interconnect these members. Then coming into the markets that we operate, historically, we've always had bilateral contracts. Then back in the years, we had what we call the short-term energy market, post-term, which was a form of a balancing market. Then in 2009, we opened what we have today as our flagship market, which is the day-ahead market, where participants can trade power for the next 24 hours for every single hour of the next 24 hours. Then in 2013, we had what is called the post-day-ahead market, which was intended to provide a balancing, members with the opportunity to balance their portfolios as close as possible to real time. Currently, we still have bilateral contracts. We still have the day-ahead market for the next 24 hours of trade. We then introduced what we call forward physical markets, which is a month ahead and a week ahead. So currently, our members are able to trade power for the month ahead and the week ahead, the day ahead. Then we have what we call a continuous market, which is the intraday market. There we trade power up to an hour before the hour of delivery. Then in April this year, our recent market is the balancing market. Here we trade power up to 15 minutes before the hour of delivery of that power. And this is operated by our system operators. Looking into the future, we are looking and working towards developing an ancillary services market, financial market, as well as capacity markets. These are the next set of markets that we will be opening in the medium term, and work is underway to develop these markets. So in terms of the market frameworks, as I've mentioned, we've got the monthly, weekly, day ahead, and then we've got the continuous market, which is intraday, up to an hour before delivery of power, and recently the balancing market, which is 15 minutes before delivery. And across all of this, as the power pool, we then settle the physical contracts. We do settlements of the wheeling and losses. We've got a wheeling methodology in place. We've got a losses charging methodology. Then we've got a market monitoring department, which looks after the markets to ensure that there is no market manipulation and market abuse. This is just a view of the share of our markets between the bilateral contracts and the competitive markets. Since inception, we are still hovering around the 20% mark in terms of what is traded in the competitive markets versus the bilateral contracts. And in terms of energy exchange in the power pool, we're sitting at around 8 gigawatts per annum, with money that is exchanging hands around, in the last financial year, $122 million US. That is made up of the energy charges, wheeling charges, losses fees, as well as our administration fees. Then from a transmission perspective, we've got different types of transmission projects. First category is aimed at interconnecting Angola, Malawi, and Tanzania, and that work is ongoing. Category 2, these are projects that are aimed at relieving transmission congestion particularly in the transit countries. Then category 3 is transmission projects that are aimed at moving or evacuating power from new generation sources to the markets. Going forward, this is the areas we are focusing on as the power pool. We want to achieve adequate transmission infrastructure. And here we are finalizing a regional transmission financing facility to assist us to finance transmission lines. We are also introducing a new transmission pricing methodology. This came about as a result of these new memberships that are applying from IPPs. It became necessary for us to relook at our transmission pricing to make sure that it's in keeping with developments on the ground. We're looking to increase our electricity market liquidity through additional members that are currently joining the power pool and ensuring that we have efficient transmission capacity allocation in place. We are also looking into improving our system operations in terms of dealing with the issues of market imbalances, energy imbalances. And this is partly why we introduced the market, to ensure that we can deal with issues of the balancing market, to deal with the issues of inadvertent energy. We have a project currently to interconnect to the East African power pool through a line from Zambia, Tanzania into Kenya. Work is advanced on that project. We expect that project to be commissioned in 2025. This will then give us access to trade electricity all the way from Cape to Cairo once we are interconnected via the Eastern Corridor into the East African power pool. We are also involved, lastly, on the initiatives of the African Union around the Continental Transmission Master Plan, as well as the Africa Single Electricity Markets, and both of these are ongoing studies. Then, by way of conclusion, we pride ourselves as the SAPP, as the oldest and most advanced power pool in the continent. Our trading in the competitive markets is gaining momentum. Of course, bilateral contracts will be with us for a long time to go. However, our competitive markets have been gaining momentum. We are exploring activities around alleviating the transmission constraints that we currently have in the region, and our priority areas being really to increase the electricity that is traded via our markets in the region. And we are embarking on country road shows currently. I think we'll be coming to South Africa in October to engage with the stakeholders in the electricity industry in terms of what is it that we do as the SEP. I mentioned that we are working on a transmission financing facility called RTIF, Regional Transmission Infrastructure Fund, that is being established and aimed at financing transmission lines. And also we are focusing in terms of the issue of renewable energy, in terms of bringing those into the mix and the energy that is traded into the power pool, which is particularly why we then opened up membership to other categories. And lastly, ensuring that we can enhance and influence developments in terms of power sector developments at a policy level in the SADC region. Thank you so much, Valley. I think this brings me to the end of my presentation. As I said, there's much more content that we have on the slide deck that I've shared with you, and we stand ready to answer any questions. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Mzee. You've blown my mind away. You know, I think as an African power pool, I think your vision and the services that you're offering is actually mind-blowing. I think, you know, it's just a pity if I like that vision of yours from Cape to Cairo. You know, I had that vision, I still have it, from about 10, 15 years ago. You speak to my colleagues and my associates, I always punt that is to trade that electron from Cape right to Cairo. And I see you mentioning that. You know, if we got all our transmission projects, if we got the Grand Inga up and running, all the other projects in West Africa and East Africa, we could be assisting the Europeans now, you know, in their crisis. We could have been sending them electrons from Africa into Europe, you know, but that's another debate. And so I think the future looks augurs very well. I think like most power pools, you've evolved significantly in the last few years in terms of your thinking and your strategic direction. I'm disappointed that South Africa, we don't figure, given our potential, we don't figure commensurately, proportionately in your business at the moment. I think I know the reason, but I don't have all the details, so I'm not going to go there as to why we're not playing that role. And sometimes, and maybe I'm going to ask you that question later on, but you must come up with an answer is maybe municipalities, capable municipalities. Why not? We should be wanting to tap into this to the SAP power pool. We tried that in City Power in 2008 to tap into Kaura Basas, but the landscape was not ready for that then. So as an AMEU, of course, we don't want to go against our government's policy. We are law-abiding and we respect government policy, but in this crisis situation, working within government precepts and frameworks, we would like to tap into that and take all other role players into that, because we need those electrons ASAP. So we have a not to 10-year window. I think in the not to 10-year window, we should be there. We should be, I think South Africa and other countries of North should be playing a big role. I see SAP playing a big role in all 52 countries in the next 10 years. But in the next 0 to 3 years, which is our crisis situation, we need to tap those electrons that we can get from SAP. So we'll talk about that as we go forward. So once again, thanks for your presentation. I'm sure, I was watching the chat boxes, all of that. There's a number of questions and comments. We'll get to that. And just to let the audience know, we will circulate all presentations. So, but in PDF format, and then please respect the, I won't say confidentiality, but the restrictedness of information. I always say good information in wrong hands is dangerous. And of course, media, and I know lots of media in this domain platform, media, and I say this with respect, always twist data and information. So just be careful with that.